Hopefully that will work. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Allow me to welcome you to historic Fort York. What I just fired is a reproduction of the Newland pattern light infantry musket, which was one of the firearms used by British and Canadian soldiers during the War of 1812. This firearm is a smooth bore muzzle-loading weapon, which basically means that smooth bore meaning there's no rifling, no grooves in the barrel to assist with the projectile's accuracy when the weapon is fired, and muzzle loading, meaning that you have to put the gunpowder charge and the bullet down the mouth, down the muzzle of the gun to actually get it to go off. You saw what I needed to do to fire. The first thing I did was flick open this steel frizzen here, exposing the pan of the lock. Now the pan is shaped much like a spoon. It has a little mouth to it. And into that mouth, I pour a little bit of gunpowder. I get the gunpowder out of my cartridge box here, this black leather pouch. And the powder is wrapped in a paper tube like so. Historically, this would have had 168 grains of gunpowder and one lead musket ball at the back. I bite off the top of the cartridge with my teeth, put a little bit of gunpowder in the pan, just enough to fill it, and then I shut the frizzen, protecting the gunpowder. That way it's not going to blow away if it's windy or get wet if it's raining. Then I cast the musket down and pour the rest of the gunpowder, the paper and the bullet, down the barrel. Now to seat that charge at the breech, at the very far end of the barrel, I use this long steel shaft here known as a ramrod. So I use that to force down the charge all the way to the bottom, seat it in place, and then I return the ramrod back into the brass pipes here. I don't want to lose this or have it break on me, or it's basically I have a really expensive club. To fire the weapon, I pull the hammer here to the full cock, aim the weapon at the enemy, and pull the trigger. When I pull the trigger, the hammer is thrown forward, and this little rock here is struck against the steel frizzen, forcing it open. In the process, it produces a series of sparks. Now, to the younger members of the audience, what kind of stone, when struck against steel, produces sparks? Does anyone know? Yeah.
Flint.
Flint, very good. So this little rock here is a flint stone. And so when those sparks hit the gunpowder, you'll have a big flash here in the pan, a big explosion. A little bit of that ignition will go through the little hole here bored into the barrel, known as the touch hole, igniting the rest of the charge down the barrel and then sending the projectile out towards the enemy. A well-trained soldier could do all that. Prime, pour, ram, cock, and fire 3 to 4 times a minute. That's one shot every 12 to 15 seconds or so. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back out there. I'm going to fire a couple more times for you guys. I'll come back. If anyone has any questions, we'll go from there, okay? Does anyone have any questions by any chance? Yes, sir. Very good question. A smoothbore musket like this one here had a very limited accurate range. This weapon was accurate to about 120 yards, so the distance of a football field. So you had to get fairly close to the enemy to assure any kind of accuracy with this weapon. The maximum range for a musket like this was generally about 250 yards, but if you got hit by a musket ball at that distance, you're probably one of the most unluckiest people ever to be born. Now, to compensate for its inaccuracy, soldiers were trained to work and fight together in groups, in unison. and to approach the enemy within that 120 range. So battles back then were often fought on fields with both sides close enough to, quite frankly, see the whites of their opponent's eyes. So where that path is, where my colleagues over there, and the nice red coats over there, that would be about a good range I'd want to start opening fire at, because I know I'm going to hit something there. Then again, I'm also going to get shot at as well. Now, you notice the amount of smoke produced from these weapons. This is just one guy firing one gun. Imagine on a battlefield if you had hundreds, if not thousands of people engaged in combat firing weapons like these. The battlefield would quickly become obscured from billowing clouds of gray smoke. And that's one of the reasons why soldiers back then wore such bright and colorful uniforms to help tell friend from foe, almost like team colors, if you will. So you're fighting very close to your enemy. There's a lot of smoke on the battlefield. It's better to know who your enemy is and who your friends are than try to have any form of concealment. And as you clearly saw there with when I fired, even if I was hiding behind a tree or a bush and I fired this thing, they're going to know where I am fairly quickly. In fact, First Nations warriors, Native warriors, and European and American soldiers trained to be sharpshooters, skirmishers, were trained to move from one place to another as soon as they fired because of the amount of high and over heel that you get from just firing this weapon once. So when people ask me why did they wear red, I say because it made sense. Back then, it didn't matter if you wore camouflage, didn't matter if you wore pink polka dots, they're going to know where you are, and you're going to have to be pretty close to them to begin with if you're going to engage in combat using these weapons. Any other questions? No. Well, tell you what, guys, I have quite a few young volunteers here, so what I'm going to do, if parents are willing, I'm going to have a little drill session with these guys. So we're going to teach you how to do a bayonet charge. Afterwards, if anyone wants to, they can get a chance to actually hold the musket and feel its weight, and that includes big children as well. So maybe the young ones first. Little ones, please follow me, and I'll issue you your musket.